To avoid missing our team's films, featuring the latest developments and unique updates on the Israeli war, subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and click the super thanks button below. The Israel Defense Forces announced today that they conducted broad airstrikes on many Hamas members in Gaza. According to the IDF, a more full explanation of the airstrikes would be offered at a later date. The Israeli Defense Forces conducted a drone hit against an anti-tank guided missile unit in southern Lebanon, as well as artillery and tank bombardment of Hezbollah sites in the vicinity. Yesterday, Hezbollah militants launched more than 30 rockets at northern Israel. The attacks against Hezbollah targets were carried out in response to mortar fire on IDF targets in northern Israel. In reprisal for more than 30 mortar bombs thrown into Israel earlier today, Israeli planes, artillery, and tanks commenced fire on Hezbollah infrastructure targets in Lebanon. According to IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari, several of the mortar shells made it inside Israeli territory. The IDF did not immediately offer information on the number of rockets fired from Syria. Earlier on Saturday, the IDF reported 2 rockets were fired from Syria towards northern Israel, setting off sirens in the Golan Heights settlement of Avnei Eitan. The IDF said both rockets landed in vast areas without damage. The army said artillery fire caused the rockets to fire. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for firing 30 mortars from Lebanon onto Mount Dov. Alma and Avnei Eitan in the Golan Heights, near Lebanon and Syria, heard rocket sirens. The threats follow Israel's clashes with Hezbollah and other Palestinian groups in Lebanon. The Israel Defense Forces responded to Syrian missile strikes into northern Israel with artillery fire. After a week of border confrontations with Lebanon, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant assessed the situation at the IDF Northern Command in SAFE today. The minister underlined regional forces' defensive measures to protect civilians and was informed on operations to disrupt terror groups and other targets, according to Gallant's office. The Israeli Air Force struck Syrian airfields again the next day. Beautiful images on ex-Aleppo airport were targeted again today. Syria accused Israel of striking Aleppo airport twice in 3 days. Syria used to launch rockets into Israel. Also targeted on Thursday, Damascus airport was repaired and returned to service immediately. The Defense Ministry reported that Israeli airstrikes in Aleppo late Saturday rendered the airport inoperable. Hours after Syrian rockets hit Israel and days after a similar strike on Aleppo and Syria, the ministry reported that the Israeli enemy attacked Aleppo International Airport from the Mediterranean at 11:35 p.m., damaging and crippling it. The ministry condemned Israel, saying the episode confirmed the occupation's cruelty and accusing Israel of targeting Palestinians. The Chief of General Staff said that Syria's missile assaults against Israel prompted the action. The Israel Defense Forces did not respond to Syria's charges on Thursday. Israeli airstrikes closed the Damascus and Aleppo airports. This is the first attempt since Hamas attacked Israel a week ago, resulting in violence. On Saturday, numerous reports said the new attack on Aleppo airport occurred after the runway was restored and the airport reopened. Hamas received more armaments and aid from Iran yesterday. Iranian Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian met with Hamas Political Bureau Chief Ismail Haniyeh in Doha, Qatar, hours after visiting Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut. On Saturday, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi called Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed, Shiite al-Sudani, Qatar's Emir Tamim bin Hamad al-Thani, and Oman's Sultan Haytham bin Tariq to urge immediate and decisive action against Israel's Gaza actions. While Iran is involved, Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon have increased attacks on northern Israel. Meanwhile, Gaza is deteriorating. After today's Israeli attacks, Hamas tried to activate its Gaza command to collect ammunition and prioritize residents. However, before the expected ground invasion, Israeli Markiva tanks, armored vehicles, special soldiers, and fighter jets barricaded Gaza. The Israeli army announced that the evacuation corridor for northern Gaza was open, with hundreds of thousands going south. The IDF stated that the deadline for Gazans to leave the northern strip and travel south to avoid injury had been extended but did not clarify what the new deadline was. The Israeli Defense Forces have stated that they will then launch an all-out assault. The Israeli army has announced that it is planning an all-out invasion of Gaza. The Israel Defense Forces announced the completion of preparations for a significant ground assault in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Defense Forces said in a statement that they are ready to expand the Susu by undertaking a wide variety of offensive operation plans, including a joint and coordinated attack from the air, sea, and land. The Israel Defense Forces Logistics Directorate said it had finished a draft of hundreds of thousands of reservists as it moved to equip troops for the ground offensive. IDF battalions and soldiers are stationed around the country, and we are working to boost readiness for the war's later stages, with a focus on a large ground operation. The world community anticipated Israel's Gaza ground offensive. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Israeli forces outside Gaza indicated preparations for the next phase of the fight with Hamas. Gazans should defy internal displacement and refuse to leave the blockaded territory for Egypt, according to Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Anya stated in a broadcast, "No to displacement from the West Bank, not just from Gaza, and no to Gaza to Egypt." According to the Israeli Defense Forces, Hamas is preventing Palestinians from escaping northern Gaza. After giving almost 1.1 million northern Gazans 24 hours to flee, the IDF is poised to launch a ground operation. As mentioned, the signs point to a large-scale Gaza invasion. This approach poses many risks to the IDF and its population. Hamas officials have urged them to stay in the densely populated Palestinian territory despite warnings. After Israeli threats, thousands of Gaza Palestinians evacuated south. On Friday, the Israeli Air Force dropped pamphlets urging Gazans to leave. Most migrants use Al-Rashid Street, a seaside route that rapidly becomes a parking lot when evacuated. The Israeli army attacks militant Hamas and Hezbollah targets during evacuations. In the midst of northern Israel tensions, the U.S. defended its Gazan citizens. The U.S. and Egypt will temporarily open the Rafah border crossing to evacuate 600 American Gazans. Washington and Cairo reached a deal during U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken's regional trip and visit to Egypt. According to Washington officials, the crossing occurred Saturday between 12 o'clock and 5 p.m. local time. These programs are not the only U.S. aid to Israel. Washington supported its forces in the Middle East with US F-15 fighter jets landing on October 13, according to the U.S. Air Force. Aircraft were launched from RAF Lake and Heath in the UK. It said, the U.S. added 10 Thunderbolt planes to the region this week. The Norfolk, the second U.S. aircraft carrier supplied to Israel, left Virginia for the eastern Mediterranean. This aid is crucial as Israel prepares ground attacks on Gaza. Thank you for monitoring us. To keep up with our team's latest Israeli war updates and exclusive reporting, subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, and click the Super Thanks button below. Meet us on our next project.